You know, some days you think you know exactly how your story's supposed to play out, until a flat tire on a silent country road reminds you life's got bigger plans. That golden hour was settling over the hills, turning everything soft and yellow, the kind of light that makes even a broken-down car look like something out of a movie. Luca, that's me, was pedaling home with soup and bread for my grandmother, trying to get there before the night chill set in. 24, worn beyond my years. And not ashamed of it. Life had drawn those lines on my forehead with real reason. I'd quit college. Took whatever work I could find to keep the lights on and my grandmother's medicine cabinet full. Gardener, handyman, delivery boy, whatever. Pride doesn't fill your stomach. But I kept a little tucked away, you know what I mean? Anyway, just as I rounded that last bend, I spotted her, sleek black car, steam whispering from under the hood, a woman in heels pacing. Her whole vibe radiating stress and something else, maybe loneliness, though she'd never admit it. I pulled over, offered help. She was guarded. You sure you know what you're doing? She asked. But she let me work. Isabel, though I didn't know her name yet, watched like a hawk as I found the jack, swapped the tire, did what needed doing. She kept glancing at her phone for a signal. But there was nothing except us, the road, and the wind. She tried to pay me. I said no. Honestly, kindness should travel free. For a second, we just stood there. Two strangers from worlds that rarely touch. She asked my name, and when she said it back, it sounded like it meant something. I didn't think I'd ever see her again. But you know how small moments can stick with you? She drove off, but she kept rolling through my mind that night. The way she looked both powerful and a little lost. Back in her city apartment, she probably didn't realize my name had already made it onto her to-do list. Turns out, even people who run boardrooms can be haunted by a small act of decency. Days passed, each one stuffed with odd jobs and worry. My grandma's medicine got pricier, the weather colder, but her smile always said, "Good comes around, Luca." I'd heard that all my life. But I never really believed it. Not until Isabel's assistant started asking around town, tracing rumors and descriptions, piecing together the location of the guy who'd fixed a tire and refused a reward. When Isabel showed up in my neighborhood, stepping out of that car like she was lost and found at the same time, I didn't know what to think. She laughed when I asked if she had another flat. "No, Luca," she said. "I came to thank you properly." She sat with me on an old bench. Told me my kindness had gotten under her skin. She wanted to know, if you could do anything, what would it be? I shrugged, because dreams don't pay bills, but she handed me an envelope. Told me to read it later, said it was just a door, not a debt. When she left, the drizzle had faded, and the world felt different, like hope was suddenly a thing I might be allowed to feel. Inside the envelope was a letter, not just a thank you, but an invitation. Isabel's company ran a program for people with grit, heart, and stories worth sharing. She saw something in me I hadn't seen in myself, a chance to do more than survive. That night, I stared at the ceiling, thinking about how sometimes one turn of a wrench can turn your whole world upside down. Walking into that office for the first time was like landing on another planet, glass everywhere. People moving with purpose, not a speck of dust in sight. I felt out of place, the old button-up shirt clinging to my back. Shoes shined so much they hurt my eyes. "You must be Luca," the receptionist said. "Miss Isabel will see you now." And just like that, the world started to shift beneath my feet. The first weeks were rough, corporate lingo flying over my head. Imposter syndrome digging its claws in deep. There were times I thought about quitting, but every time doubt got loud, I remembered Isabel's words. "You belong here. Don't forget that." Slowly, I learned to ask questions, to stay late, and take notes. The other apprentices didn't always get me, but a few started to ask for my help. I was still the kid with dirt under his nails. But people noticed I listened, that I fixed things without needing praise. Twist is, my grandma's health improved, the pressure eased, I moved her closer to the city so she could get better care. Even Isabel changed. The more we worked together, the more her edges softened. She wasn't just my boss, she became a mentor, a friend, someone who cared about what I thought, not just what I could do. We launched a new initiative together, reaching out to other young people, showing them that their stories had power, that they could build a future from almost nothing if someone gave them a chance. A year flew by. I stood on a stage, nervous as hell, my grandma beaming in the front row, Isabel right beside her. A year ago, I said, I was just a guy on a bike with a toolkit and nowhere to go but home. Today, I get to build something bigger. And all because one person stopped seeing me as a problem to solve and started seeing me as a partner. The applause was warm, but the real moment came after. When we took a drive back to that country road, stopped in the same place where it started. The sun was setting again, life's sense of humor, right? And Isabel handed me a keyring shaped like a tire. Engraved. One good turn changes everything. We stood there, three of us, me, Isabel, and my grandma, letting the wind wrap around us like memory. I realized then that life doesn't always announce its big moments with a bang. Sometimes it's just a flat tire, a quiet act of help, a door you never thought would open. Sometimes the greatest victories aren't the loud ones, but the ones where two people from different worlds meet in the middle, shake hands, and change each other for good. So here's my question for you. If a stranger knocked on your life tomorrow, would you stop and help? Or would you keep riding? Do small acts of kindness really matter? Or are we all just chasing something bigger? Drop your thoughts below. What's your turning point, your story of grace? Justice, community, connection, it's all built on moments like these. Maybe, just maybe, one good turn is all it takes. You ever think you're finally done with all those crossroads in life? Like you paid your dues and now you just get to coast? That's what I thought. A few months into this new world, me, the apprentice turned assistant, working long hours in glass towers by day, warming up soup for grandma by night, thinking maybe, just maybe, I was finally safe from the next big shakeup. But, yeah, life doesn't really work that way, does it? The city had settled into spring. Rains washed the grit off the sidewalks. People started smiling again, and even the air seemed easier to breathe. I'd gotten used to my routine, started dressing a little sharper, even caught myself practicing presentations in the mirror, chuckling at how out of place I used to feel. Isabel, now my boss, sometimes felt more like a partner, a co-conspirator in making the impossible feel possible. Her laugh had gotten louder, more genuine, and even the interns whispered about how she'd changed since the apprentice arrived. One Thursday, she called me into her office. "Close the door, Luca," she said. That old executive tone slipping back in for just a second. "I want your opinion, off the record." She slid a folder across the desk. One of those heavy ones, the kind that meant trouble or opportunity. And sometimes both. Inside were details about a new project, but it wasn't just business, it was personal. A rural community, much like the one I grew up in, facing a factory closing. Families out of work, hope drying up. Isabel looked at me, waiting. "You know what it's like out there," she said quietly. "What would you do?" I took a deep breath. Memories rising up. Days I'd come home with nothing but apologies for grandma. Nights I'd convinced myself not to give up. "It's not just about money or jobs," I told her. She just nodded, maybe a little surprised by how sure I sounded. That weekend, we drove out together. Isabel in jeans and old boots, hair pulled back, no makeup. The townsfolk didn't recognize her from the billboards or glossy magazine covers. They saw a woman who listened, and a young guy who'd once been in their shoes. We sat with families in kitchens that smelled like coffee and hard times, listened to stories that broke your heart, and patched it up in the same breath. We met a school principal who'd pawned his wedding ring to buy new books, a mechanic teaching kids how to fix bikes so they wouldn't feel useless. The twist? Isabel started seeing herself in these people, realized her own story wasn't as different as she thought. And I saw her drop the last bit of armor she'd been carrying. But, nothing's ever smooth. There was pushback. Some folks thought we were just another corporate band-aid, a couple of city types here to feel good and leave. Even Isabel's board doubted her. Rumors of profit loss, her judgment questioned, my role scrutinized because, honestly, some people can't stand when the system gets shaken by an outsider. I started catching side glances in the halls, whispered jokes about the handyman playing executive. There was a moment, late at night, I almost packed my bag and called it quits. That's when my grandma, God bless her, sat me down, hands warm around her tea mug, and said, "You don't run from storms, Luca. You plant your feet, you listen to the thunder, and you remind it who you are. Sometimes it's not the world that doubts you, but the mirror." That night, I made a promise. If I could use my seat at that table to pull one more person up, I'd do it. Not for Isabel, not for the company, but for every kid who ever wondered if their story mattered. The next day, I asked Isabel if I could run one of the community workshops myself. She looked at me, a little surprised but proud. All yours, she said. So, I stood up in front of a group of teens, some hiding behind bravado, some behind hoodies. All of them hungry for someone to see past their rough edges. I didn't give them a speech about innovation or personal branding. I just told them about the road, the tire. The day a stranger trusted me. And something changed in that room. A few eyes brightened, a few walls came down. News spread, first slow, then fast. Other communities reached out, asking for our help. People from the company started volunteering, offering skills instead of handouts. The board, skeptical at first, couldn't argue with results. Dropout rates fell, small businesses launched. And something bigger than profit started to take root. Twist came on the night of our biggest event yet, a town hall under string lights, folks bringing casseroles and folding chairs. A band of kids playing music they'd learned in our after-school program. Isabel stood beside me, her arm almost brushing mine, and for a second, the whole world felt like it could finally exhale. Then, out of the crowd, a man stepped forward, a father whose son had been drifting, lost to the streets. He took the mic, voice trembling, and said, "It's not about what you gave us. It's that you stayed when everyone else left." That was the real win, you know? Not the headlines, not the bonus, but that moment when you realize kindness echoes further than you'll ever see. We headed back to the city that night, driving in silence for a while, both of us lost in thought. Isabel finally broke it, her voice soft. "Luca, do you ever wonder if we're really making a difference?" I turned, met her eyes in the dashboard light, and said, "If you're not scared, you're not doing enough." She laughed, wiped at her eyes, and I realized she was as grateful for me as I was for her. Months passed. The project kept growing. I got promoted, official title and all, but still the same old me under the suit. My grandma's health stabilized, and she started joining our events, making her famous bread pudding for the kids. Isabel started smiling more, and the space between us grew smaller, not in the way office gossips whispered about, but in the way two survivors find family where they least expect. And now, a year from the day I fixed that tire, I find myself speaking at a conference, full room, bright lights, suits and badges everywhere. I start my talk the only way I know how. Let me back up a sec. None of this started with a business plan. It started with one person willing to help another, and with someone brave enough to accept it. The applause is nice, but what matters more is the handful of people who wait after, just to say, "Thank you. I needed to hear that." So, what do you think? Does a single act of kindness still matter in a world chasing profit and perfection? Can you really turn the tide, one story at a time? Even if you weren't born for the spotlight? Tell me in the comments, where's your road, your turning point? And if life drops a broken tire at your feet, will you ride on by? Or will you stop and see who's really standing there, waiting to change your story and maybe, just maybe, the world?